wanted to chat quickly about deloads. You hear people throw that term around a lot. Yeah, taking a deload week, whatever. But like, what does that really mean? And I think if you're like a power lifter versus a bodybuilder or someone training more for the aesthetics and hypertrophy, deloads are a little differently. I know when it comes to like power, I don't know too much about it, but when it comes to powerlifting, they back off the loads a little bit, so hence like the deload. They change their training, but more so when it comes to the bodybuilding side of things, generally people train with a higher volume approach. So it shouldn't really be considered a deload. I think it should be considered a devolume. This is a concept I learned from the hypertrophy coach. He did a couple videos on it a while back, and I watched his little like recovery strategies, deloads, things on his site. So just kind of, throwing forward some of that information that I learned. So really it's a devolume where you want to back off your volume, maybe your frequency, number of days you train, but you still want to keep the load and intensity high. So for me right now, I'm in a bit of a deload phase. I've been doing it for the last, 2-3 weeks, which is a long time for me. I don't usually take deloads, but I needed one. And I'll get into that in a second, but how I'm training is, 3 to 4 times a week, 4 at the max. Usually I'm not really training like 2 days in a row either. So plenty of rest days. So I'll usually, train one day, take a day off, train again, maybe 2 days off, whatever it is. Like the goal for me is to prioritize recovery, reduce inflammation, give my body a full break. But when I do train, I'm still training hard. I'm not just going in there just doing these little light pump workouts and getting out of there, which is what I used to do when I would, take a deload. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna take a week or two just to chill, and I'd go in and just do these super light pump workouts and leave. But now what I'm doing is, workouts that are very low volume, but I'm trying to make them very effective and efficient, and I'm still training hard. Usually about one all-out working set to failure, but no extra intensifiers. So no drop sets, no rest pause sets, clusters, whatever it is, just, whatever I can hit to failure, and no force reps either. So whatever I can hit to failure on my own, maybe with a little bit of a spot, then I call it. So I'm still trying to lift heavy, still tracking my numbers and log booking. But the volume is really low. So for me, that's gonna do the job of giving my joints a break, giving my body a break. But I'm not gonna lose strength, so I'm likely not gonna lose any muscle in this period of time. Whereas, if you just go in and do pump workouts, you're probably just going to lose a lot of the muscle and a lot of your strength, which is not the goal, right? The deload is meant to prioritize recovery so that when you go to more of like a push phase, you're ready to attack it and go forward. Now, how did I know I needed a deload, or how would you know if you need a deload? It might be a little individually specific, but I think some universal things to consider is generally just how you're feeling, you know what I mean? So and this goes for a mental aspect as well as a physical aspect. So physically, maybe if your performance is starting to dip, your strength is not progressing, or it's actually going down. Maybe your recovery is not good. You're not recovering as quickly. Your energy levels are not great going into the gym. Those are something to consider. If you've been training with like a very high intensity and high volume block for a long period of time, and you start to notice your body's a little achy, you're starting to drag ass a little bit, the performance isn't there, the strength isn't there, it might be time to back off a little bit to give your body a little bit of break, so that way you can push again. No one can train at 100% all the time. Maybe somebody can, but I don't think I've found anybody like that. So it's important to give your body breaks and recovery, right? If you prioritize recovery, your body will be that much better for when you push again. Now, mentally, for most of us, if you like working out, you're so excited to train and get in the gym. If you find that, it's time to go to the gym and you're not as motivated, and you don't really have that itch to like smash the workout, and when you're there, you're kind of, just dragging through to get through the workout and then leave, then you might need a deload as well for that mental break. A lot of times the mental aspect and the physical aspect can coincide together. So that kind of happened with me. So, I took this deload about 9 or 10 weeks after my show. So I had obviously leading up to the show, did the full contest prep, and then then post show for about 9 weeks. I kept training really hard. So there's a long period of time where there's no breaks. I was training, I don't train super high volume, but it was, still a decent amount of volume, high frequency, not many rest days, I was going, and all of a sudden my body just needed a break. My recovery wasn't as good. My body composition started to change in a negative way. My performance wasn't good, and in the gym I didn't have that like amazing feeling that I usually have. So I knew it worked out, the mental and physical aspect. It's time for me to just back off and take a break. So I'm doing that right now. Again, how am I structuring this? So right now, I'm just doing like an upper body workout and a lower body workout, or even just like a full body workout. One exercise per body part with one working set, and pushing pretty hard, like I was saying. So, training 3 to 4 times a week, that's going to give my body a break. And then when I go back to more of a higher frequency split, where I maybe do a push-pull leg, or just some other workouts in there that are a little more high volume and more specific to different body parts, my body will be ready for it. And I can already tell right now that I'm excited for this deload to be over, because I can't wait to get back to my routine and start smashing the gym all the time again, which is what I wanted. I knew I would be ready when, my body was feeling good, my joints were feeling good, energy levels were good, but also mentally when I'm like, okay, I can't wait to go to the gym. And that's where I'm at right now. So I know this deload did me well. Now, another aspect to consider when you're deloading is nutrition. I think this is something that people overlook a lot, and I've done in the past too, where it's like you do a deload and you focus on the training aspect of it, but you don't do anything with your nutrition. So obviously, if you're not training as frequently and not as high volume, you likely don't need as much of a nutritional intake than you usually would. Obviously, don't lower your food too much, because you don't want to lower all your food and your training, because then you can run the risk of maybe losing a little bit of muscle. Likely not, because usually deloads are a shorter period of time, but still something to consider. So, really what I do is more so just manipulate my carbs. So on training days, I'll still keep, carbs decently high, not quite as high as they were on like a regular training split, but enough to like fuel my performance. And then on rest days, I'll lower the carbs a little bit too. Again, I like to use a deload to regain some insulin sensitivity as well, so that when I go back to really pushing with training, I can also push food up a lot and get my carbs way high to match that training. My body's going to utilize it, so that's something to consider too. To remember that if you're not training as frequently or as high volume, you likely don't need as many calories. A lot of times, it happens when I do these deloads, I just end up having way more cheat meals than I usually would. So it kind of like defeats the purpose, but bites me in the ass a little bit. It's happened a little bit this time, but I've got a little control over it, so that's all good. But my body is feeling good. I'm probably going to do this deload maybe another week, half a week. I'm going to be getting some blood work soon too, and when you get blood work, you're not supposed to train for a few days anyway, so it kind of lines up. And then once the blood work comes back, hopefully everything's all good and up to par, then it's time to start pushing again and really get this off season going. So be ready for that, because I'll be documenting a lot of that.